All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Hashira Half Hour. My name is Emily, and I missed you all last week, but I was busy. I was being a best man for my besto friendo at his wedding, which was the honor of my life, and I had a great time. But I do know that it was also the first week of Shibuya, and boy, do I have thoughts. As always, I am joined by my friends Hannah and Brian.
For one, I missed you all last week too, but I was also having a great time in the mountains of California with my family. So, enjoyed that, but missed all of you. I also have thoughts on the first and second episode of Shibuya Arc, but they're very different from Emily because my thoughts are confusion. What the heck is Geto doing here? I thought he died. I'm so confused.
What do you mean Geto lives? Vine, anyone? It's me, Brian. Welcome back. I am excited to still be in Shibuya. I've been reading the JJK manga. I'm up to chapter 191 right now out of 230. And like I said to Hannah before we started this, if she's confused now, I'm still confused. You're confused? Bruh, I'm confused. So, also, rest in peace, that guy. He died recently. I'm so sorry.
R.I.P. to a real one. Okay, so let's just jump right in. We've got a lot of ground to cover. First of all, and this is partially my bad because I was gone last week, but can we please for a minute talk about the new intro sequence, though? I mean, oh my gosh, there are so many super subtle spoilers in it. For all my manga readers out there who know, they know. Also, Specials is just an absolute friggin' bop of a song. It's so good. It's been on repeat in my car all week. I don't know. In my opinion, I feel like JJK is nearly unrivaled with their intro songs because I feel like you wouldn't necessarily, if you just heard it, you didn't have context, you wouldn't necessarily be able to pick out immediately that it's an intro song from an anime versus just something from Japanese radio. And I think that just goes to show how much the genre is evolving. 10 years, when I was a kid, you could 100% pick out one of those songs. There were no anime themes like this 10 years ago. I just think it's so cool to hear this very contemporary music get used to introduce such a cool and visually stunning sequence too. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Specials is really, I guess, special for lack of a better term, if you will. Because, you look back at the first opening of One Piece and it's Akatemo, Umbewa, na 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 na. And it's very much so yeah, this is about some happy-go-lucky kid. And of course, right, this is a darker arc, so you need something a little bit more mysterious to pair with it. But also, I just think that it's really cool that I don't know, certain songs, if we did American shows with this, I feel a lot of shows would do a lot better if we had better music to go with them, or if just American shows did some anime intros and outros, because realistically it's just here we are. Shameless had the same intro for 11 seasons. Literally put in some work here.
I mean, all the American shows I watched growing up literally didn't even have intros. It was a 3-second little jingle, and that was it. I was okay, all right, cool. So as the anime only, I can't pick up on the foreshadowing yet or the spoilers that are in this opening, but I can definitely tell the darkness, just the lighting in general of the opening is very dark and mysterious. And obviously I've been spoiled on a few things for this arc, so I kind of know what's to come. People keep telling me they're think Infinity Castle, but JJK, and I'm cool, that's not good. So, that's great for me. The song itself is really freaking good. I haven't been listening to it the way Emily has. I'm more of a Demon Slayer OP type of girl. However, JJK is right up there with the OPs. I most animes that I watch, almost every single one of the OPs I'm just bopping to in the car. So, it's on my playlist though. I'm listening to it. It's not as often. It's really, really good. I wish that would be introduced to more American media, but I think it's more of an anime thing, so we'll see. But I'm excited to see how I feel after the season is over when I rewatch the OP and see all the foreshadowing that's happening in it.
And we will talk about it then, because it's really insane, the level of detail that was put into this opening in particular. So very, very cool. But let's just jump in. So this episode is officially titled Evening Festival. We left off last week with Mechamaru and Mahito getting ready to square up, and a pretty shocking reveal of Mechamaru's original disfigured body and now the healed version of this body made possible by cursed energy. He's also right now getting ready to absolutely wreck Mahito from the looks of it by piloting the Eva. What did you guys think of this fight, and also of the nod here that's like pretty obvious to those very popular mecha animes like Neon Genesis and others?
Okay, I will say I haven't watched like any other mecha animes. My newbie to the anime world is showing. It still has only been about 3 years since I like officially became into anime. Please don't hate on me for that, you guys. I have a right to talk about anime. I love it, okay? I'm talking to the viewers, not you. Obviously, Emily and Brian, don't hate on me for only being an anime weeb for 3 years. But I haven't seen Neon Genesis. I haven't seen anything that I saw like on Twitter that people were saying this fight was a nod to. However, the fight itself was really freaking good. The animation, I feel like in season 1, it didn't live up to my expectations just because I was like comparing it to Demon Slayer, which everyone was saying it was just as good. I'm trying to word this. I think the animation is really good. It just didn't like wow me like I thought it was going to, but this did. Okay, so I think that Mappa is definitely putting a little bit more like maybe heart and soul into it is like the right word. I know Mappa has like 10 million projects, so I think that sometimes it can seem like they're spread out a little bit too thin, and I feel like they're putting a lot of effort into JJK this season, so I can definitely see that. And I was really, really impressed with this action sequence. There was one moment where like they were zooming in on Mahito kind of like flying around, and I was like on the edge of my seat, like, this is so cool. This is so cool. The last time I felt that way was during Entertainment District of Demon Slayer. So snaps from Mappa there.
Yeah, I love this scene. A couple different reasons. First off, like that drop kick that Mechamaru does, that is a direct like pull from Neon Genesis. That was so cool to see them reference something very interesting like that. Other thing, those like red stars that were coming up with like the flashes and stuff, those gave me Kill la Kill vibes. I don't know if either of you have watched Kill la Kill. I don't think so, right?
No, not yet.
But I mean, it's like another like early 2000s Studio Trigger anime, but it's so good. And like I was just like, I love those because like that is the main thing that like I remember from that show is like that just pretty like attacks, and I loved every piece of that because like Mechamaru using those cursed energy blasts that were like years worth of cursed energy, and it was just so well done. Also, Mahito's idol transfiguration throughout the entire thing, he was like a bird, a squirrel, a whale, a fish. It was like, I don't know, man, that was just wild watching him like jump through hoops just to like dodge and bob and weave.
He just went through over the list of all animals. He's just like, yeah, this one, this one, this one, this one.
And that was, I think that showed like how intimidating he is as like an opponent. And we've known this. Like he is scary, and he is also like very joyful about it, which makes him like even scarier. But I saw something fun actually about that in particular, because that is something that I believe is mostly original to the anime, is him like switching into all the different forms. And Gege came out actually, the mangaka, and was like, yeah, I should have done that. That looked really good. They're like, wow, good job, guys. Yeah, so that was just a great sequence, and absolutely like Neon Genesis is like an absolute like stronghold in anime history, whether you absolutely love it or absolutely hate it. Like I don't think there's any denying at least how visually stunning it is, and also another one of the greatest OPs of all time. So cool. And it's so fun to see like these nods to the history that has brought anime to where it is. And what excites me about that too is seeing like, who knows, like 10, 15 years from now, who's going to be referencing like JJK and Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan and all the things that are like great now, and how exciting, because there's going to be great stuff in the future. And I just think that's so cool. But moving on a little bit. So speaking of like the visual appeal of this scene and this fight in particular, there actually was a lot of controversy with the way that this episode was aired. There was so much movement and motion in this fight that Japanese television actually censored it a bit, and added some motion blurring that you might have noticed as they're moving through. This was to help cater to people who needed the visual like stimula turned down. So what this means is that probably like when a Blu-ray version or like a DVD version comes out, it's going to be so much more rapid fire and like even crazier to watch than what we got to see. And a lot of people were mad because they're like, I just wanted to see like the real work that the animators did. I don't know. What do you think? Did you feel like what they did here with the blurring, like did it hinder the experience for you? Did it enhance it a little bit so that it felt a little bit slowed down? What do you think?
I literally wouldn't have known any different had you not told me that. Like, I wouldn't have known at all. So I don't think it was really a problem for me. I, of course, think that people, people who have better lenses on things like that notice, and I'm sure like more people who are into film and things like that or animation probably understood what could have been, but like to the normal eye, I was like, this is still pretty good. Now, of course, do I now want to see what it would have looked like without motion blurring? Sure. But also, like, for the general public, like, I think it was a good move on whoever does that censorship, like, to think about, okay, maybe this scene, like, maybe, like, we shouldn't put that out because that could be, like, triggering to people, or that could send someone into, God, I don't know what it is, epilepsy, I think it is, with the flashing lights. So, I mean, it's being mindful of your audience. I think that's very fair and very conscious.
Yeah, I too didn't really realize anything because I was just like, oh, this fight is so cool. Like I just said, like I was super impressed with the animation of this fight that I didn't notice anything. I didn't know until I opened up Twitter after I watched the episode. People were talking about it. And of course, a lot of people were saying it from like a bad side, saying like, oh, they're doing it just so that they can get more sales for the Blu-ray because people want to see it. And like, it's a master plan. And I'm like, I don't think it's a master plan. I think they're just trying to censor things for, people that maybe can't handle that kind of visual. But yeah, I wouldn't have noticed it. When I watched it a second time after I found out about this, I tried to catch things and I really didn't see much. I was super impressed the second time as well. So I think I'm interested to see the Blu-ray then, though, because since I was so impressed by this fight scene, I think it'll be interesting to see it uncensored, and it might just absolutely blow my mind, honestly.
I think so too. I noticed right away. Admittedly, I live with a film buff, and he caught it. Like, he's like, oh look, they're like doing this, and like this is like faded around the edges, and I think like I probably wouldn't have caught it if I hadn't been sitting with him immediately, but I do think that like seeing the Blu-ray version for people who are visually able to do that is probably going to be insane. Because this fight, as cool as it was giving me like Naruto versus Sasuke a little bit, for those who know. Which is not a bad thing. Obviously, that's like one of the most beloved fights of all time. It almost felt like a lot of things were happening that were fast, but it happened slow. I don't know if that makes sense. Almost like a slow motion kind of feeling from the motion blurring. So I do think that like when that gets turned off, it is going to give us some of the crazier stuff that we've seen also from Mappa, Attack on Titan sequences, Chainsaw Man sequences, and those also like didn't get blurred. So if this one did, it makes me wonder like how much crazier it might be. So I'm excited to see it for sure. So, this fight, as we've said, is like visually stunning, and both of them are like really giving it their all. Mahito does put up a good fight here. His ever-adapting body and changing forms is super crazy to watch. Like we said, he's becoming all of these different things to best adapt to this fight with Mechamaru. It's like he's evolving in real time. However, it's when he's pushed to his limit and he unveils his domain expansion, self-embodiment of perfection, that I think that the visuals of this episode are chilling. We saw him do this in season 1, but it almost becomes this like Nirvana-like state. We see like almost like the Buddha poses, and it's again so ominous knowing who this character is and what he's about. And things are not looking good for Mechamaru, but even when it appears that all is lost, Mechamaru actually unleashes his own simple domain in this domain expansion, and that allows him to land a devastating blow on Mahito and also break free of this domain expansion. Which, like, again, knowing who this villain is, I feel like that's pretty high-level stuff for a kid his age, huh?
Oh, yeah. I'll admit I still have no idea how domain expansions work. I feel like 90% of what I say about JJK is like, I don't understand what's going on, but it's cool. I do remember Mahito's domain expansion from the last season. It's very chilling. It's very, like, almost, like, creepy. Like, I felt creeped out when it zooms in on his mouth and he's like, huh?
How was that, Hannah?
That didn't sound creepy. That sounded like Ariel.
Ariel.
Larynx.
Listen, not a voice actor. wouldn't make it. I'm not doing that again, by the way. But it goes from, like, I think Mechamaru, and I can't remember, I know they introduced the actual person's name, and I can't remember, I'm so sorry. But, like, he's going from this, like, battle cry, scream, to Mahito just being very, like, his, like, hands in his mouth, and like, blah. But what Mechamaru does is really impressive, and it's like, it's felt like this fight has gone very much back and forth. Like, you don't really know who's winning. Of course, Mahito, like we mentioned earlier, his whole, like, character is that he's very childish, and that's what makes him so creepy to me, and why I dislike him so much, is that he's, like, villain, and he's just enjoying it. And he is enjoying this, even when he, like, takes a blow. He's, like, surprised, but at the same time, he's like, okay. Okay, I'm a different animal now. We're fine. And to see what Mechamaru does, with seemingly a fatal blow, I obviously know that's not the case because I know Mahito plays a part in this arc. It's really, really interesting, and I really liked that he was able to do it. I feel like Mechamaru is one of those characters we haven't really gotten to know that much or spent that much time with. So to see him kind of fight toe-to-toe with Mahito was really, really quite interesting, and I was, like, very much cheering for him.
I like Mahito. He's great.
Of course you do.
Oh,
you
Brian.
like Doma, you like Mahito. Like, this is, of course,
Also, I got roasted last week because I said I like Jogo, too. Like, do we want to go off there?
Is he the volcano man?
Yeah. Mike Wazowski's cousin.
Oh my god. He's like, I can't believe it. I'm on the cover of Shibuya.
But seriously,
Okay.
no.
No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna let you finish, Brian.
No,
I sound
go.
like Kanye. Oh my god. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna let you finish, Brian. Oh no. Low-key though, Volcano Man reminds me of the movie Volcano, which is like an old action movie, and if you've never seen it, don't well, maybe you can. I don't know. It traumatized me as a kid. I've had nightmares about that movie, like, literally for 25 years. So, anyway, I don't like him because of that. Anyway, Brian.
Nonetheless, though, I love Mahito, and I think it's really interesting the way his domain expansion kind of works, right? Because your hands are in your mouth, and, like, your hands are the dirtiest place of your body, but, like, your mouth is also supposed to be, like, one of, like, people used to kiss each other because it was cleaner than using your hands and handshaking because you touch everything. So, like, it's this contrast of, like, what is good, what is evil, but also I love seeing that imagery of the hand to the mouth. Like, I'm wearing my Junji Ito shirt because, like, let's be real. Like, they are repping the horror anime brand so well. And I love seeing the darkness within the domain expansion. Domains, so, like, trying to give context to it because now I have better understanding. A domain expansion, it guarantees hits. So, like, when you're in a domain, it opens up a space within a given plane, and that space has coordinates and barriers. So, within those set barriers, everyone or the person who casts that domain guarantees their hit. Now, in a sense, you have this bubble where Mahito's domain is, and then you see Mechamaru start a simple domain. So within that domain, he has created a new space where he can guarantee a hit, which is what allows him to actually get out of it. So very, like, Inception-like type stuff. But nonetheless, once he does that, it is really cool to watch it kind of all wash away because he was very surprised that it happened. But nonetheless, like Hannah said, he was, like, enjoying the fact that he was struggling. And I think that's what's really interesting about him. It's like, even though he's, like, an awful being, and again, I like Mahito, I don't, like, kin him. Let's just be clear on that. I think it's just very interesting to see, like, even in his own peril, he still finds somewhat of, like, a pleasure in it.
He does, and that's what makes him, like, so eerie. Again, and we've seen this in the last season. But also, like, as far as eerie people go, we shouldn't forget about Geto, who's just kind of watching this on the sidelines also. And is also, like, maybe not getting, like, as much glee out of it as Mahito is, but he's, like, genuinely, like, very interested. He's like, oh, this kid is actually, like Mahito is actually, like, having to try right now against this kid, which just goes to show. And again, this kid is, like, Yuji's age. Maybe he was a year older from the other school, but, like, this is a child, essentially, that is, like, piloting this enormous thing using saved up years of his life to like fight Mahito, and it is seemingly paying off, or at least we thought so, because then JJK does what it is best known for, which is shocking the world and breaking our hearts. This is part of the Dark Trio for a reason. Things are not going to be okay in this show for like a lot of like at least for two people now that we've seen so far, including of course the people in this scene. So Mechamaru, it seems like, has won this fight against Mahito, landed a fatal blow, and then he acts with a bit of hubris and is like, let me take on Geto too, because if I wipe both of them out, then I don't have to worry about them like following me, and I can go tell Gojo what I need to, and Gojo can protect me. Mahito reappears in this moment from behind him, and this is truly tragic in a poetic way, because here's Mechamaru, who has like literally just gotten his healthy body for the first time in his life, and the last thing that flashes before his eyes is his colleague Miwa and his like excitement and his wish to get to see everyone in the flesh for the first time, because he's only been able to act through his puppet. He's immediately killed by Mahito here. What struck me in particular about this exact moment were like Mahito's visual similarities to Miwa. They actually look like quite similar to me. And so like the visual transition from like her smiling in his memory or in his thoughts to like the scary smile of Mahito, I don't know, that was not lost on me. It was really scary and so damn sad.
I think it was really interesting the way that they did this. But I mean, they set this up from the first episode that they were going to try and kill him. And it was nice to see like Mechamaru make that effort. But even if he did actually manage to kill Mahito, I don't think there was a way he was making it out of this alive, because he also would have had to face Geto. And we all know from what we've seen about Geto's abilities, that dragon would have ripped him to shreds. And I say that with very sad heart, because I love mechs. I love Megazords. I love Armored Core 6, even though I haven't played it yet. Like, there's a lot of things about like Mechamaru that make him really cool. He also is very similar to a Naruto character, Sasori. I just absolutely love the idea of puppetry, controlling, manipulation, those kind of themes, and to see him get sidelined so early on in the series itself is pretty disheartening.
Literally texted both of you right after I watched this episode. I was like, just die. Like well, I don't think Emily even responded. I think Brian just went like, I haven't watched. Oh no, both of you were like, I haven't watched the episode yet. You knew. That's why.
To be fair, I didn't know if they were going to leave it on a cliffhanger though again, so I wasn't 100% sure. Now I know.
Yeah.
Now I know.
I had just gotten attached to him too, and it's for a random reason. But everyone here knows that I really like voice actors and like paying attention to it. And I literally just found out. I'm like, same voice actor as Inosuke. Let's go. Like now I'm a little bit like partial to him. Dead.
Itadori Buji.
That's all I have to say.
JJK is known for that. We've now had like Mechamaru was closer to being a main character than Junpei was, knowing that he was like at least part of the sorcery schools, but they've done us dirty before. This is how the season's starting. This is like episode 2 of Shibuya. We're in for it. That's alluded to because before this fight had begun, Mechamaru had been like internally going over and like mentioning that he needed to warn Gojo about Shibuya so that Gojo could protect him and the area of Shibuya in Japan. We already know the title of this season, and if you're online at all, you know that Mechamaru losing's not exactly a good thing here, knowing that he was the only one who apparently knows about this ahead of time. As their mole or their spy. Him dying effectively is leaving our heroes in the dark, which is not great. Halloween night rolls around and we see an aptly named evening festival happening with huge crowds in Shibuya gathered around and celebrating. And we see them slowly get trapped by a very villainous seeming dropped veil over the area. What this veil means is that anyone without those jujutsu sorcery powers cannot enter or exit the affected area. Those with the powers are able to. And so, obviously, this has triggered an alarm for all of our jujutsu heroes, and we get to see everybody show up to be prepared to like aid in the fight however they can, although most of them are outside of the veil, hanging out on the outskirts to keep an eye on things. What's interesting is all these humans that don't have these powers, everyone who's trapped under the veil has now started demanding that Gojo show up. And like they don't know who Gojo is. They're like, I don't know who this guy is, but we're not allowed out until he shows up. What did you think of this? Why are they only looking for Gojo?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that whatever's going on is specifically made to target Gojo. If it is, I'm assuming it is Mahito and Geto that are, pulling whatever this is that's happening. I think Geto is the one who did the veil because he had mentioned it right beforehand, the 10 days prior after they defeated Mechamaru. I think it's obviously clear that whatever this is happening, this is a specific ploy to kill Gojo, I'm assuming. I mean, if you're against Gojo, like, you're kind of screwed. So and this was a theme in season 1 too, is like they were trying to get Gojo. Like, it's clear that the good side is way overpowered because of one man. So what I'm seeing here is that this is a ploy to kill him or entrap him in some way. They know that if they do it this way, that Gojo's going to show up and that he's going to try and do it alone, because Gojo is very confident in himself and he's a little bit cocky. Everyone else that, is on Gojo's side too is also very cocky about his power and is very confident in his ability to take this on. So I think they kind of know that he's going to show up, and he's going to show up alone. It's clear that everyone who's showing up, like, we've got the whole team here. I don't think I've seen Yuji. I don't think he was there. But we got like Nobara, we got Nanami, we got Panda, we got Maki. Like, a lot of our main characters are there, but they're all kind of just hanging out outside the veil, and they're being ordered to. So whatever's going on, Mahito and Geto are trying to get Gojo alone, and I think that's obviously going to be successful. Going off of what little I know, I think that this isn't going to go well. I think that something horrible is going to happen. I keep logging onto Twitter, and people are like, "Don't go, no, everyone stay away," and I'm like, "Oh my god."
I mean, yeah, it's like watching the Toy Story toys, go right towards the lava pit in Toy Story 3, okay? There's not much you can do, okay? And unfortunately, this time, there are no little aliens to use the claw to save everyone. Like, they're all dying. You never know. But nonetheless, the villains, they don't like Gojo. They're more of a no-Jo type situation. So realistically, obviously they want to get rid of Gojo. Okay, he's like the LeBron James of their team. Like, you get the ball to LeBron in the championship. Like, we gotta win right now. So realistically, they need to get rid of him in order to have any sort of chance against the JJK team. Because even still, right, you have Yuji, who has access to, like, Sukuna's abilities at this point and some of his power because he's eaten the fingers. And that itself is a threat. Like I kind of talked about last week, like, we don't understand the gravity, or we're starting to understand the gravity of that very first episode in which Gojo sat on Sukuna's back. Now, like, knowing, like, kind of how powerful Gojo is from the Hidden Inventory arc, and understanding kind of, or as, like, Yuji's consumed more fingers throughout time, he's gotten more powerful. That is definitely something that is kind of a problem. They need to really get as much as they can out of this. Now, as to why they're screaming for Gojo, like we kind of talked about with Hidden Inventory, he went from "we are the strongest" to "I am the strongest." If he is, like, the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer, that's the one they want.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to find out next week exactly why. But he is the strongest, right? I don't know. We do see, of course, the episode ending with him actually stepping in. He has kind of like a boss entrance here too. They're all like, "Where's Gojo?" They're like pounding on the veil, and his hand just like comes through, and he just like enters. Our favorite white-haired teacher since Kakashi. We love our cocky little man. Yeah, I don't know. He is the strongest, right? What could go wrong? Yep, that's about what I figured. The non-answer is an answer. On that note, this is where we wrap up. So does anyone have any final thoughts on this episode before we head into our favorite moments?
This is super random, but I really liked when Mechamaru was talking about, like, his simple domain. He had mentioned the Heian era. We now know, thanks to Demon Slayer, the Heian era was like 1,000 years ago. That's the era that Muzan started. So I really liked that call out. I was like, hey, I know when that was. Which, of course, now we're like 100 years in the future compared to Demon Slayer, because this is like more present time. It's 2018. That was like 1,100 years ago. And that's when Jujutsu, like, sorcery was at its strongest. That's interesting that was that long ago. I wouldn't have known that little fact if I didn't watch Demon Slayer. So thanks, Demon Slayer.
What if Muzan, right? Because we know Muzan's backstory now, right? What if the guy who turned Muzan into a demon was a Jujutsu sorcerer, and that's
some
why.
big brain shit, Brian.
I was just gonna say something in agreement with that, and then I realized it's a huge Demon Slayer manga spoiler, so I won't.
Good thing we avoided that, but this is my rant for today. I want an anime crossover, okay? Listen, we all loved when Disney Channel had, like, High School Musical and, like, I don't know, like, Lemonade Mouth or whatever, like, on the same time. Where is it? Okay, I want to see Deku. Well, actually, I mean, Deku's not my favorite MC. Come for me in the comments. I want to see All Might. I want to see Kakashi. I want to see, I don't know, like, Rengoku in the same team. Like, where is it?
It's in Fortnite,
Nowhere.
apparently. So...
It would have to be in an alternate universe, considering all of these animes you just mentioned take place in very different timelines.
Super Smash
cool.
anime version.
Yeah. They just all
we
get
need is
transported into this, like, alternate universe.
all we need is Takamichi. He's got it.
Anya could solo them all.
Anya.
Starlight throw.
Man. I'm sorry, but all Takamichi's gonna do is sit there and cry, and somehow everyone's gonna love him.
I mean, it is in the song.
He's the crybaby.
All right, guys, let's go ahead. We'll transition to our favorite moments here. I'll go ahead and go first. So I just have to shout out the opening again because I didn't get to for episode 1. So consider this my honorary shout out for episode 1 and to the specials. Like, I just think it's such a cool sequence. It's one of my favorites in recent memory for sure. I said enough about that. For this episode, I got to see Nanami again. I love him. He's my 9-to-5 man. I love him. He is my sweet, sweet, only one that makes sense boy. So anytime I get to, he is like my Rengoku this season. Love him. Love getting to see him.
He's very relatable. I just say my favorite moment had to be the entire between Mahito and Mechamaru. As much as I hate how it ended, because that really pissed me off. It just, like, I've touched on it. The animation was gorgeous. You know, I was able to follow the fight pretty well. Like, I pretty much understood what was going on, and that was probably one of the first fights that I felt that way. So I really enjoyed it. And as much as I hated the ending and the outcome of that, I
think that my favorite moment this season, actually something that we didn't talk about quite yet, and it was watching the people in the veil and their reactions. Because there were certain people that were like, do you see that? And other people were like, what are you talking about? And I think it kind of goes back to what Geto talked about in the first season, like killing off humanity to force the evolution of that. A lot of people could have the potential to see curse energy, or a lot of people do have the ability to work in the Jujutsu world, you know, and looking at it from like a large scale theme, I think it kind of like when we look at like people who have cursed energy, they've gone through a lot of trauma in their life. And I think it kind of resembles that a lot of the general public has trauma that like has affected the way that they see the world around them. And I think that that's a really big kind of point to talk about, is that the general public does know about, fit into this hidden world as much as, you know, Geto would like to think that everyone's just a monkey. So I think it's a really like good counterpoint to his entire concept.
I would even counter that though and say that this seems exactly like something that he might set up. Right? Because like in theory, if they're able to practice those people, and I think that they even said this, I have to go back and watch it one more time, but in theory, I think that the people who can see can potentially get out. The monkeys can't. To use his own words. Exactly, Brian. I couldn't have said it better myself.
There it is. That's the truth bomb of the episode.
Yeah, they're the people who can't use it are trapped inside for a reason, I think. We're going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to find out, and it's going to be bad. All right. Great first moment. So excited for next week's episode. On that note, I'm going to pass it over to Hannah real quick for a Taisho Era secret.
And now it's time for a Taisho Kusokuso Wasabanashi. I told y'all I'd figure it out at some point. Still don't exactly know what I just said, but I can sound it out at least. Speaking of Japanese, something that's interesting, you might have noticed in a lot of different animes that use Japanese names, so like Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen are some of the ones that I can think of right off the top of my head, where all the names are Japanese, they're derived from kanji, they have, you know, their hiragana phonetic sounds, they have their katakana phonetic sounds if it's foreign. I won't get into much of that in this Taisho secret. However, you'll notice that when they are translated into Romaji for us to read, some of the unofficial translations have random U's in places. I can think of Doma having a U in the middle after O. And then, of course, like Tanjiro sometimes has a U after his O, same with Kyojiro. So what that actually means is in the hiragana alphabet, they use the U character after any O character. So that can be O, To, Ro, Mo, No, Ko, Do, etc. A lot of people will think that the U would mean that you need to pronounce it O, which that's not the case. They, in the Japanese alphabet, for some reason, use the U character to just signify that you are stretching out the O vowel. You might have noticed in Japanese they drop vowels a lot because they speak so fast. That's just to let you know, hey, don't drop it. So when we get an unofficial translation, many times those U's are still there because they are literally just taking the hiragana phonetic alphabet and making it so that we can read it and using our letters. Now, when they get to the official translation, many times those U's get dropped because it can actually confuse us as English speakers when it comes to English rules, because we start to think, oh, is it pronounced more like Yauma? Is it pronounced Tanjirao? Because of our rules. So they actually dropped that U. That being said, if you're someone who likes to argue how people spell these names, don't, because either way is right. You can spell it with a U, that's correct. That's more directly translated. You can spell it without a U because that's usually the more official translation that's less confusing. So either way, you're right.
Pretty cool. So Gojo would have been Goujou, technically.
I would have to look up the kanji for him. I don't think there's any U's. So really? I don't think you're supposed to really stretch anything else. Just Gojo. It's not like Gojo.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's I think cool. Satoru, though, there is a U at the end.
Satoru. All right. Well, this has been a great episode. I'm so excited for next week. And honestly, we're just going to be rapid fire from here the rest of the way. As far as honestly, we are gonna be moving pretty fast for the rest of the damn show, as far as I know. So hang on to your seats, and we will see you next week. Super excited to keep on going. And next week's episode is officially called Shibuya Incident. So we're approaching, really getting into it. For today, that's all the time that we have. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please make sure to give us a like, give us a download if you're listening to the podcast. And if you're able to, make sure to follow us on all platforms. We are on every major social media channel at Hashira Half Hour or at Hashira Half on Twitter. Ask us a question, drop a comment if you have anything maybe you agreed or disagreed with, and we're really excited to hear from you and to see you again next week. Until next time, umai.
Umai!
Umai!